Surgeon Dennis was on his way home after a long day at work, still thinking about a difficult case. A girl gave him one of her drawings along the way. Dennis never imagined that the drawing he purchased from the girl would provide the solution to the question that was haunting him. In addition to being a well-known cardiologist, Dr. Dennis was a fascinating individual for his extraordinary medical career. Dennis's decision to become a doctor was sparked by his own curiosity and restlessness at a young age. In contrast to many young people who follow vocations that are inspired by their parents or close family members. His parents were artists and creative people who came from a family that was unconventional by conventional medical standards. His father was a master craftsman who created exquisite ceramic pieces, and his mother was a gifted painter. As is characteristic of artists, Dennis grew up in an atmosphere that was a veritable haven of casualness and spontaneity. It stood in stark contrast to the medical field, where stringent standards and procedures governed the course. Dennis was introduced to the beauty of colors in brushstrokes and the distinctive shapes that came to life under his father's deft hand from a young age. His early years were infused with the smell of paint and the sound of laughing, creating an artistic environment that encouraged him to look for beauty where others would not even dare. Still in school, Dennis had his first encounter with the mysteries of the human body, especially the intricate workings of the heart. Fascinated by every detail, the boy quickly fell in love with the magic contained within the chest of every living being. For him, heartbeats represented more than simple mechanical movements. They were symphonies of existence, unique melodies revealing the presence of something greater and inexplicable. On his birthday that year, Dennis received a gift that further accelerated his passion for medicine: a stethoscope. That small medical instrument became his most precious treasure. Wherever Dennis went, his stethoscope accompanied him. He kept it lovingly around his neck or carefully stored in his backpack, ready to be used at any moment. Dennis began using his stethoscope to listen to the heartbeats of the people around him. No one escaped being examined by the young medical prodigy. His family, friends, teachers, and even the pets that crossed his path were gently subjected to cardiac listening by the aspiring young doctor. His fascination with listening to heartbeats knew no bounds. At night, when silence reigned, he would lie on his bed, holding the stethoscope close to his heart, attentively listening to his own beats. The time to enter medical school finally arrived, and for Dennis, this was the natural step in his journey toward the dream he had nurtured since childhood. The path was clear. Medicine, and more specifically, cardiology, would be his specialty. Soon after graduating, Dr. Dennis began his professional career as a cardiologist. Amid consultations and surgeries, his talent and skill stood out prominently. Dr. Dennis was recognized not only for his medical competence, but also for his compassionate and empathetic nature. He won hearts with his natural empathy and soothing calmness. Patients felt embraced in his presence, and his reassuring words created an atmosphere of hope and trust amidst the uncertainties of illness. It was this reputation that drew young Lauren and her son Jane to his office. Lauren had heard about the cardiologist through other patients who testified to the exceptional care he provided. Her son Jane carried a heavy burden, a congenital heart condition that required specialized attention and treatment. Lauren's life had been an emotional roller coaster since Jean was born. Her son's heart condition was a major challenge, and the constant threat of losing him haunted her daily. Each beat of Jean's heart brought both hope and apprehension to Lauren's heart. Since his birth, Lauren had dreamed of offering her son a life without limitations, where he could run, jump, and play sports like other children. She envisioned a future filled with smiles and joy, where the adversities imposed by Jane's heart condition would be overcome. However, reality was different. At 6 years old, Gene still faced numerous restrictions, and his heart condition was progressing, making the future even more uncertain. As Lauren anxiously waited her turn to see Dr. Dennis in the waiting room, she knew this was her last resort. The journey to seek help for her son had been arduous, with many other doctors refusing to perform Gene's surgery due to its complexity and the risks involved. When they entered the office, Lauren and Gene were greeted with a warm smile from Dr. Dennis. His welcoming presence brought some relief to Lauren's anxious heart. Carefully, she handed the doctor all of Gene's tests and medical history, eagerly awaiting his evaluation. As Dr. Dennis examined the tests, his expression began to change. Gradually, his eyes revealed concern and sadness at the information the results unveiled. Jean's condition was more complex and urgent than he had imagined. Lauren was already familiar with that expression in a doctor's eyes. She had seen it before in those who refused to operate on Jean. With a trembling voice, Lauren made an emotional plea. "Please, Dr. Dennis, operate on my son. You are our last option. No other doctor wanted to take the risk of operating on Jean, but he needs you. And so do I." Dr. Dennis, accustomed to studying the complexity of the human heart's functioning in other patients, now felt his own heart breaking at the plea of that distressed mother. He knew Jun's condition was delicate and that the surgery was a huge and risky challenge. Dr. Dennis agreed to study Jun's case more deeply and promised to give a response in a few days regarding the possibility of performing the surgery. Lauren felt a mix of hope and gratitude, knowing that at least the doctor was willing to carefully analyze her son's situation. As mother and son prepared to leave the office, Jun surprised everyone by taking a drawing out of his pocket. It was a folded sheet of paper, and he had drawn it himself. "A gift for you, Dr. Dennis," the boy said, handing the drawing to the doctor with a shy smile. The doctor took the drawing gently and observed every detail. It was a simple and colorful illustration representing a landscape with mountains, trees, the sun, and clouds. But something caught his attention in a special way. A bird drawn with surprising perfection and impressive details that stood out from the rest of the drawing. The day continued with Dr. Dennis immersed in his analysis of Jun's tests, seeking approaches that could offer a chance of success in the surgery. However, all alternatives seemed filled with risks and challenges that could compromise the health of the young patient. In a moment of deep reflection, Dr. Dennis closed his eyes, seeking a connection with something beyond his own medical ability. He believed that his talent was not just a coincidence, but had a greater purpose, something that transcended his human capabilities. In an act of faith and humility, Dr. Dennis offered a silent prayer. "God, I ask you for a sign so that I can be sure whether I should accept to perform Jun's surgery." Dr. Dennis acknowledged that medicine had its limits and that some questions went beyond scientific knowledge. In moments like these, he sought support in his faith, believing that a higher power could offer him the sign he needed to make such an important decision. Dr. Dennis had no idea that his request for a sign would be answered in such an unexpected and immediate way. In the late afternoon, as he walked back home, he was still immersed in thoughts about Jun's case, trying to find a solution for the complex surgery. That's when a girl, seemingly a street dweller, approached him with a sweet and polite voice. She held a drawing in her hands and timidly asked, "Sir, could you buy the drawing I made?" Impulsively, and driven by a feeling he couldn't explain, Dr. Dennis took out some bills from his wallet and handed them to the girl. In return, she gave him a folded sheet of paper with the drawing. The doctor continued walking, and only when he had a moment to look at the drawing, he was paralyzed. It was a drawing of a bird, the exact same bird from Jun's earlier drawing. The bird, with its impressive details that uniquely stood out in Jun's childish artwork, was faithfully portrayed in the drawing he had just bought from the unknown girl. At the company competition, the new hire I was supporting froze on stage. The presentation wasn't starting, and the employees looked worried. The data in the materials, indeed the numbers in the materials, were completely different from what I remembered. "Hey, what's going on? Are you not prepared?" The training manager couldn't hold back and spoke up. Other employees started murmuring. "Hey, there are only 5 minutes left. How could you make such a basic mistake with the data? You can't stay in a student mindset forever." She lowered her head, desperately holding back tears as she was shouted at loudly. "This can't go on," I thought. I stood up. "Wait a minute. 5 minutes is plenty of time." I took the laptop with the original data and went up on stage. "Leave it to me." What happened next was a turning point that changed both my life and hers. The new hire's name was Mary Taylor. My name is David Davis. I've been working at a printing company I joined straight out of school for about 7 years now. My main job is to check the printing orders we've received and place orders with the printing department. It's mostly manual work, and while there's a lot of it, it's really simple. I don't make any big mistakes, but I also don't have any significant achievements. I'm not a standout in the company, just an average employee. It's nearly impossible to achieve anything notable with such routine work. If I wanted to aim higher, I could request a transfer to the sales or development department during our semi-annual reviews and prove myself there. But I've just stayed in the department I was first assigned to, maintaining the status quo. David has been with the company for a long time, hasn't he? Doesn't he get bored doing the same job? His contemporary, Robert, is already a manager. Well, Robert was getting attention since he was a newbie. He's a Harvard grad, right? He's the kind of elite this company dreams of. Where did David go to college again? I heard he didn't go to college. He graduated from an online high school. Oh, that explains it. I overheard those words coming from the women's restroom. What exactly is explained? Does it mean I lack ambition because I graduated from an online high school, or that I don't get bored with the same job? I don't think academic background has anything to do with job performance, but I'm not good enough at my job to say anything grand. I'm fine with how things are now, and it's true that I graduated from an online high school, but I don't remember doing anything bad enough to be talked about behind my back. Well, maybe I'm seen as a bad employee because I contribute so little to the company. That's fine by me. Doing more than what's required would probably just cause problems anyway. I pretended not to hear and walked past. The new fiscal year started, and new employees joined the company. Among them was an extraordinarily beautiful woman. Her name was Mary Taylor. Seeing her greet everyone with a radiant smile, I thought she would definitely be popular. However, my prediction was way off. During the few months of training, I interacted with her. Even the simple tasks I did took her a long time to complete. She took too much time because she tried to do her work too meticulously. And then, pressured by time, she made mistakes. It was a vicious cycle. In short, she was inefficient. Even just sorting requests that came through the system or email was a struggle for her, making her stand out negatively. While the other new hires quickly handled tasks from simple to complex and started to work as assistants to their seniors, she was still struggling with basic clerical work. Mary was clearly being looked down upon by her peers. I'd overheard complaints like, "Why is someone like her at this company? My friend didn't get hired." After all the new hires left for a group drinking party right at closing time, Mary was the only one still glued to her computer. When I asked if she wasn't going to the party, she said they told her to come after she finished her work. She finally logged off at 9:00 p.m. The party was probably over by then. I think the company's atmosphere is partly to blame for the fact that this wasn't called bullying. In meetings, our manager Robert would say things like, "If you know you're not good at your job, you have to work harder than anyone else. If you can't contribute to the company, you're just a worthless freeloader." Her position became more and more uncomfortable. Putting this much stress on a new hire like Mary isn't going to achieve anything. It will only drain her spirit instead of motivating her to try harder. Robert's goal might not be to encourage her, but to warn other employees that this is what happens if they're not competent. He even cheered on the other new hires, saying, "You guys are really capable. Work hard for a quick promotion." I couldn't understand why she, in her first year, was being treated so harshly. During lunch break, I invited her to lunch. Since Mary was temporarily assigned to my department for training, no one found it suspicious, and I was relieved. "You look tired. Are you okay?" I knew she wasn't okay, but I asked casually. However, it seemed like a serious issue for her. "I didn't realize I was so incompetent," she said in a tearful voice. I panicked. I hadn't expected her to be so troubled. My peers all graduated from top universities, and I'm the only one from a lame school. I already felt a barrier. Now, at work, the gap is so clear. They're all moving up, but I can't get anything right. You must be disappointed in me too, David. Her words were sincere. At the same time, I wondered if she was holding herself back due to her own prejudices. "Mary, are you shrinking away because of your academic background? What people around you, at least in society, don't judge you based on your education or academic performance. They evaluate you based on your skills and motivation. Your peers may have high test scores and be strong in mathematics or languages, but that's because they'd put in the effort, and they're still learning about the company. No one is slacking off, right? Yes, everyone gets results because they work hard. I know you're trying to, but I think you're drawing a line and giving up, thinking you're no good because you went to a third-rate university. You're right, she admitted. I always thought they were smarter and better than me and felt worthless. Having confidence in yourself, you're thorough in everything you do, whether it's reports, cleaning, or data organization. That's a great trait, but you should consider balancing quality and speed. Even if you're a bit less meticulous, no one will complain with the quality you offer. After giving my long-winded advice, I remembered that I wasn't highly regarded by others either. How dare, well, it's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Mary looked at me with sparkling eyes. No, David, your words were very insightful. I thought I had to do everything perfectly. Balance is important, isn't it? It seemed like something clicked for her after that. Mary's work efficiency improved dramatically. She began smoothly handling client interactions, organizing documents, and asking questions whenever she was unsure, steadily absorbing knowledge and gaining experience. She never used her educational background as an excuse to slack off. She just didn't know which direction to put her effort into. It seemed to me that her peers' view of her changed a bit, and they started to ask her for help or work with her, building smoother relationships. About a month later, Mary invited me to lunch. This time, thanks to you. I've recently been getting along with my peers and getting compliments from my seniors. Thank you, Mary said with a big smile. I replied, that's great to hear. I didn't do anything worth thanking me for. It's because you worked hard. No, if it weren't for your advice, I would have stayed the same. You reached out to me when I was struggling. It really saved me. I thought it was an exaggeration, but I was genuinely happy to have been able to help. I'm glad to hear that. I'll keep supporting you. Thank you. Oh, and Mary placed a few documents on the table after we finished eating. They were for the company competition. Twice a year, we have the opportunity to propose ideas on any genre or content, and anyone can participate. For new hires in training, it's one of their tasks, and their official department assignment is determined based on their performance and results in the competition. It's essentially a chance to showcase the achievement of their training. Will you join me? She asked. Me? Yes, the guidelines say it's not necessarily attended alone. Of course, I'll handle the planning and the presentation since it's part of my training, but I really appreciate your advice, David. I'm not sure you'll benefit much from asking me. There are more reliable seniors in other departments. Does that mean you don't want to join? Oh no, that's not what I mean. I'm just thinking of what's best for you. This is a great opportunity to showcase your hard work, and I don't want to interfere. Thanks to your advice, I've changed so much. Please don't put yourself down. Putting myself down. Mary used to say things like, I'm not good enough. Now I'm just like she was back then. It's a bit too convenient to back out now after giving her all that advice. As I was pondering, a voice came from above. This is an unusual pairing. It was Robert. We often ran into each other in the company cafeteria, but today he was grinning at us. No, I guess it's not unusual. You two incompetent people suit each other. That comment made me snap. I've been ridiculed by him so many times that I don't care anymore. But it's different when Mary is the target too. It's fine if you talk about me, but as a manager, it's not right to say such things to Mary. You should avoid making comments that demotivate new employees. You're in management after all. As soon as I said what I'd been thinking for a while, Robert's face turned sour, and he raised his voice. What? You're just a peer-level employee, and you think you can talk back to me? Where do you get the authority? There's nothing wrong with calling an incompetent person incompetent. It's the truth. I'm saying your way of speaking is wrong. You're not even trying to see her efforts. Don't act all high and mighty, you incompetent fool. At his loud outburst, the entire cafeteria fell silent. Robert, now the center of attention, clicked his tongue and left. As the atmosphere slowly returned to normal, Mary looked at me in the eyes. Thank you for standing up for me. I just said what I was thinking. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing your best as usual. Yes, but why is Robert so harsh? I mean, it's not that being strict is bad. Mary searched for words. She probably wanted to say that his spiteful attitude against those with low academic backgrounds or those he doesn't approve of is terrible. Well, it's true that I'm not very capable. For him, I'm full of flaws, so I must be a nuisance. That's not true. Since I joined, you've been the most considerate person to me. You don't have any flaws. Thank you, Mary. You're very kind. I'm really frustrated. I hate hearing people talk about you like that. Her hand holding the documents tightened. Please join the competition with me. I want to prove those people wrong who call us incompetent. I was surprised by her determination. I couldn't turn away from a junior who was trying so hard. All right, I'll help as much as I can. Let's give it our best. Yes, thank you so much. From then on, I supported Mary as we prepared for the competition together. The task for new hires in the competition is to develop a new project. I compiled the results of past competitions and successful project ideas and gave them to Mary. Using those materials, Mary carefully examined whether her ideas were suitable for the company. I may not have ambition or exceptional skills, but I do have experience. I supervised her materials, made corrections and suggestions, and practiced her presentation with her. Other new hires were also preparing with their mentors. Those who had already been with the company for several years were also preparing for the competition alongside their regular duties. Mary often stayed late into the night, looking tired but never complaining. She was focused solely on the competition and worked tirelessly. Seeing her dedication, I offered as much support as I could. But there was someone who tried to dampen our spirits. It was Robert. No matter how hard you try, the results will be disappointing. He interrupted us during our meeting. Robert already looked smug as he looked down on us. I'm participating in this competition too. It's a pity your project will be compared to mine. No matter how hard you work, you won't come close to my level. I stopped Mary, who was about to say something, and stepped forward. It's not up to you to evaluate the competition entries. Robert insulting us won't accomplish anything. What do you two even understand about your situation? A base academic background and a lame university due daring to enter the same competition as me. You should withdraw for your own sake. We're not withdrawing, I said firmly. First of all, this is Mary's project. Besides, seeing you belittle her hard work has only fired us up even more. Right, Mary? She nodded enthusiastically with a smile. Robert's insults didn't affect us. We knew our effort and the quality of our project better than anyone. Being mocked by someone who knew nothing about it didn't bother us anymore. Persistent losers. You'll regret it later, Robert muttered as he walked down the hallway. Hopefully he won't bother us anymore. David, thank you again. I'll do my best not to lose to Robert. That's the spirit, I replied. In reality, I wasn't sure if we could win against Robert, who was smart and held a managerial position. However, the competition's result wasn't the most important thing for her. Learning how to plan and present projects and gaining inspiration from others would be a valuable experience that would contribute to her future success. If she does that, it means victory for her. Oh, Mary, about this calculation here. I pushed Robert out of my mind and resumed our meeting. Then the competition day arrived. It was held in the main conference room from early morning. Mary's presentation was the last among the new employees, with a 10-minute slot. Everyone gave excellent presentations, clearly showing their hard work. Although Mary was visibly nervous, I was confident because we had practiced so much. Her name was called, and she awkwardly made her way to the stage while I sat at the computer below. My job was to change the slides on the screen in sync with her presentation. She held up the materials we had finalized last night and printed this morning, but her eyes widened in shock. She started flipping through the pages as if seeing the materials for the first time. The presentation didn't start, and the employees looked worried. "Mary, what's wrong?" I whispered. She looked at me with a start. "The data in the materials," she stammered. I looked at the materials in my hand as she said this. The sales figures and forecast numbers were completely different from what I remembered. "What the?" I quickly checked the materials planned for the screen, and the numbers were different there too. Whether it was a failure to save the data correctly, an input mistake, or some other issue, it wasn't the time to investigate. I hurriedly opened my folder. Besides the presentation materials saved on the company's server, there were the original documents used for calculations. Although the presentation data was missing, the source data was still available. However, it was in its raw form, just displayed in a list, rows and rows of 6-digit numbers grouped in various ways. Hey, what's going on? Are you not prepared? The training supervisor couldn't help but call out to Mary. Other employees started murmuring. The data, it's all wrong. Didn't you check it right before? No. Do you have a backup? No. Mary answered honestly, and everyone sighed. It's understandable that people might think Mary wasn't prepared, just from what was said. It might seem like an unbelievable mistake, but isn't it a senior's or manager's role to advise her to be better prepared next time? Why is everyone just exasperated? Well, I share some of the blame too. Instead of doing my own work until the last minute, I should have checked on Mary. So I need to fix this. Hey, there are only 5 minutes left. How could you make such a basic mistake with the data? You can't stay in a student mindset forever. Robert shouted, and Mary shrank back. You're wasting time. Just quit. With that one command, everyone started looking at the next set of materials. Mary hung her head, desperately holding back tears. This can't go on. I stood up. Wait a minute. 5 minutes is plenty of time. I grabbed the laptop with the original data and stood next to Mary. Then I pulled the whiteboard from the side of the room. Leave it to me. Let's do the presentation together. I'll handle the data calculations and speak them out directly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We apologize for the data issues. We'll be using this whiteboard for the presentation. I gave Mary a look, and she nodded quickly, picking out the essential parts in the remaining time. While she did that, I focused on the numbers on the screen. These weren't simple addition and subtraction numbers. There was no time to input the formulas into Excel now, so mental calculations were faster. When it came to discussing the data, I took over and wrote the numbers on the whiteboard. Last year's sales, the projected expectations, and the satisfaction levels of the orders. I compiled the numbers I calculated in my head into a table on the whiteboard. My handwriting was a bit messy, but I hoped they'd forgive that. As Mary mentioned earlier, there have been numerous requests to increase the types of printing paper. We compared the prices of 30 types of paper and analyzed the difference in sales. Hey, is David doing those calculations in his head? No way, it's impossible to calculate those numbers instantly. I could hear the murmurs, but I was so focused. These simple calculations were a piece of cake for me. So that's the basis for our data, Mary. I'll hand it over to you to finish. Yes, I see great potential in this project. It's something we can achieve together. For example, Richard, who is very skilled in languages and has certifications, could help with our translation services. Me. Richard was surprised to hear his name mentioned suddenly. Sarah has excellent design skills and could greatly contribute to creating poster templates. Me. Mary explained what kind of abilities the people in the company had and how they could be expected to help implement her idea. She showed how observant she was of those around her and how she saw the best in people. She explained her reasoning within the limited time available. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your attention. As Mary and I looked around, the previously formal applause grew louder and more enthusiastic. Mary was surprised by the response from the conference room. I thought it was the expected outcome, but I simply said, "Good job," without being too boastful. After all, the new hires finished their presentations, and the competition continued with the existing employees. Robert was the first to present with a proposal that, while somewhat impractical, focused heavily on profitability. It wasn't bad. Had it been a normal scenario, his plan would have been adopted. However, during the final evaluations, the management discussed and decided to develop Mary's proposal further. Mary looked incredulous, and her peers congratulated her. It's rare for someone to achieve such a result in their first competition. Surely, everyone in the company would now have a renewed respect for her. However, it was Robert who shattered the celebratory atmosphere. This is ridiculous. How could such an incompetent new hire's proposal get approved? Robert stood up, raising his voice. Everyone froze, looking at him. The data malfunction was obviously part of their plot. There's no way anyone could do those calculations that quickly. This is a scam. It's insane to accept a proposal from people like them. He directed his accusations toward the management who made the decision. Besides, David graduated from an online high school. To us, he's incompetent. There's no way he could do those calculations. His argument was absurd, but he was trying to push his own proposal by discrediting me. I sighed, ready to refute his illogical claims, but Mary stood up before I could. David is not incompetent. In fact, he's probably the smartest and most capable person in this company, she said. I was surprised. I'd never expected her to speak up for me. What? There's no way David is competent. You're just defending someone who was kind to you. Robert shot back. Excuse me, but Robert, what's your IQ? Mary asked. IQ? Have you never had it measured? I haven't either, Mary replied. The average IQ for American people is said to be around 98, but David's is much higher, minus 200, as I've been told. I've seen his certificate. 200? That's impossible. He must be lying, Robert retorted. The department manager, who had been silent until now, called Robert in a calm voice. Mary is telling the truth. I also saw David's certificate during his interview. No way, Robert exclaimed. Yes, my IQ is indeed 200, I said. Since kindergarten, I excelled in both languages and math. Compared to others, people called me a genius, a prodigy. I was apparently one of the few who could read Chinese before starting elementary school. They said I would be able to skip grades and go to university early. In elementary school, I found everything boring. School lessons were pointless. I had already self-studied high school material, and my classmates seemed immature with nothing in common. I wanted to talk about economics, world affairs, and my interest in space engineering, but all they talked about was tag and card games. Frankly, I was exasperated. So it was completely natural that I couldn't make any friends. If no one was able to catch up with me, being with them was just a waste of time. That's what I thought. When I entered middle school, I was isolated there too. I assumed that by the time we were in middle school, everyone would recognize my talents and try to keep up with me. But the surrounding level remained low. One day, I realized something. Sure, I might be smart, but mentally, I was just like everyone else, appropriate for my age. My attitude of looking down on others was what pushed people away. No one wants to be friends with someone like that. There was a boy in my class who wasn't as smart as me, but still did well and got along with everyone. It was just my twisted personality that was the problem. Well, even then, I didn't really want friends. Being with people who can't talk on the same level as me would only stress me out. I found dealing with people bothersome, so I decided not to attend the prestigious private school I had been accepted to. School would just be boring anyway. Naturally, I stopped leaving the house, but my parents insisted that at least finishing high school would be useful for my future. My parents gently encouraged me to attend high school. I knew I couldn't just stay home doing nothing forever. Understanding their concern, I reluctantly decided to attend the nearby high school, which offered an online program. At my online high school, many students worked during the day and attended classes at night. They worked hard to earn money. Some saved up for their dreams, some supported their families, and some couldn't attend regular high school due to illness. I met many people with diverse backgrounds and different values. Being around them made me realize that I was just a smart person. I couldn't do household chores. I had no dreams, no one I cared about, and no special skills. I was just an ordinary person. I could do things others couldn't, but there were many things I couldn't do that others could. The IQ 200 score I achieved in middle school was just one aspect of my individuality. Finally, my thoughts shifted a bit, and I started to get along with my classmates. I worried that I wouldn't be able to keep up with the conversations, but in the end, I was just a smart guy without any real-world experience. I was shocked when I couldn't follow the conversations of people who were actually working. and I realized that I was no different from anyone else. I regretted my previous attitude. When I joined my current company, I vowed never to flaunt my IQ again. I submitted my IQ certificate during the job interview as part of my qualifications, but I never mentioned it to my colleagues. I am just smart, and showing off wouldn't benefit me at all. I didn't want to repeat the mistake of isolating myself by looking down on others like I did in school, so I restrained my abilities. Being just a smart guy, I didn't stand out to the company, and I was fine with that. However, as I taught Mary various things, I gradually began to express my character. She tried to understand all my opinions and ways of thinking, bridging the gap between us. Even when I revealed my abilities, she stayed by my side. That fact gave me confidence. During our conversations, Mary discovered my IQ score, but she didn't treat me any differently. You have often ridiculed David, but he's truly the most capable person here. Please stop making such derogatory remarks about him ever again, she said. Her face turned bright red with embarrassment after she spoke. What did you say? You're just a newbie acting all high and mighty. Another thing, Mary interrupted. Robert, my competition data was accurate until yesterday. David also confirmed it, so I believe someone intentionally altered it. And with all due respect, Robert, I think it was you. The conference room erupted in murmurs. Robert slammed his fist on the table, visibly angry. Do you even know what you're saying? Trying to pin your mistake on me? I've never seen such a foolish person. But I was too scared to say anything, worried I might be wrong, and end up isolated again. But I'm the victim here, so I have to speak up. Robert's temple veins bulged, but then he suddenly became visibly nervous. Where's your proof? If you're making this up, I'll sue you for defamation. Unfortunately, I don't have evidence at this moment, but I believe the changes were made this morning. If we ask the theater department to check the usage and access logs, we'll get the answers. Boss, please fire this disrespectful person immediately. This is a disgrace to the company. Robert, sit down. Mary, you too. The two finally sat down after the department manager spoke in a calm voice. Robert was at a loss for words, his mouth opening and closing, but no sound coming out. The matter Mary mentioned can be confirmed by it, but it's clear that Mary's project was better than Robert's. The competition is over. Everyone, return to your work. With that decisive instruction, everyone stood up and left the conference room. Robert remained seated, slumped over. Half a day later, I reported their findings. It turned out Robert had accessed Mary's data. Moreover, he had also accessed data from another presenter, but they had noticed it in time to prevent any disruption. Unable to make excuses, Robert was demoted to a regular employee, but chose to resign immediately. Additionally, he was required to pay damages to the company. A colleague who was somewhat close to him told me that Robert had been under immense pressure. Graduating from a top university and becoming a manager at a young age brought high expectations from those around him, including his family and friends. He felt that the only way to survive at the company was to bring others down, or so he had confided over drinks. I realized that Robert and I had some similarities in my past, being young. I hope he reflects on his actions and finds a way to recover. I couldn't help but feel a bit sympathetic. Meanwhile, Mary's proposal was officially adopted, and I was appointed as the project leader to advance her plan. It seemed Mary had gained full acceptance from her peers, as I often saw her having lunch or going out for drinks with them, just as she had recognized the good in others. I hoped now they would see her good qualities too. About a year later, the new project achieved success. Mary had grown remarkably and was now highly regarded, getting involved in new projects and producing results. She quickly became known as one of the fastest rising employees among her peers. Although she humbly credited her success to everyone else, it was undoubtedly her talent. Even now, she honors me by seeking my advice on various matters. She asked how to balance her responsibilities while handling a managerial role. By then, I had been promoted to a department head. While supporting Mary, I gradually learned to apply my abilities to my work. Now, I no longer look down on those who struggle. Instead, I delegate tasks that I can't handle to those who can, ensuring the company runs smoothly. Being a leader means you'll inevitably be envied, but remember, they're not your enemies. Consider their feelings and strive to be someone who can reach out to them. I'll keep doing my best too. I shared this with her as I reflected on my life, acknowledging others while recognizing oneself. It seems simple but is incredibly difficult. However, if we can do that, each person's strength will combine into a tremendous force, achieving great things that were impossible individually. I want to tell my past self that I couldn't do anything alone. I believe nothing in life is a waste, but it's because of those bitter experiences in the past that I am who I am today. To make my future more meaningful, I want to live with everyone and share in happiness together. That is my current goal.